Well, welcome everybody to this video. I am sitting here and just feeling the presence, and really opening up to whatever the Spirit has to share today around the topics of guidance and discernment, which I feel are so important, and aren't really commonly talked about in a lot of Course in Miracles circles, because I think they're quite threatening. Actually, the idea that the Spirit actually is giving us specific guidance around what to do moment by moment. It seems to run counter to some of the metaphysics of the Course, which really point to the Spirit as being abstract and just being this presence of love in our mind. But it does say in several places in the Course that you will be told specifically what to do, and if we're open to it, it just makes life so easy when we're open to guidance and we're willing to ask, truly ask what to do moment by moment, and just be open, because the guidance we receive may not be what we would normally do. We've all had those experiences of having an intuitive feeling to do something, and it seems to run counter to what our past learning has taught us. And you see stories about people taking leaps of faith where they say things like, "God, I just had this strong feeling to go this way, and thank God or people." I remember hearing one story about a person driving down the freeway, and this person just had a strong feeling to change lanes, and then just maybe a minute later there was like a big accident right up ahead in the lane. If they had stayed in the lane they were in, they would have possibly been hurt. So it's really powerful. The movie The Matrix is a good movie for guidance. There's that scene in the beginning when it's a little ways into the movie when Neo has he's made contact with Morpheus he's kind of received some messages through his computer, and then like a woman showing up at his doorstep with a message, and at one point he's sitting in his office and he gets a phone call. He actually gets a delivery of and in the package is a cell phone, and Morpheus calls him and says, "I can guide you, but you have to do exactly what I say." And he says, "They're coming for you." And Neo stands up and sees the agents, the Mr. Smith and the bad guys coming for him. and he's motivated. Okay, well, what should I do? And Morpheus begins giving him very specific instructions to, cross into the next cubicle right to your left. Okay, now pause, wait there for just a moment. Okay, now go down the hall, go to the last door on the left, go in there. He starts giving him specific guidance, and at some point Neo gets too afraid of the guidance, because the next step it really takes a big leap of faith where he would have to climb out the window. And it's tragic that he doesn't take that leap of faith, because he does end up in the hands of the bad guys and has to go through a pretty painful experience. But the guidance is always being offered to us, and that's such a great metaphor in that movie of how when we don't follow the guidance, it's not like we're not going to eventually make it back to heaven and eventually experience the peace that we deserve, but it just delays things. It causes us to have to experience unnecessary pain. And I think the best, we also, another thing I want to say is we want to be really gentle with ourselves. Sometimes if there's just too much fear, the Spirit knows what we're ready to handle. And so if we think we're being guided to do something and we're really not sure, because it just seems very, very frightening and very out of our comfort zone, then the best approach, I think, is really just to be open, just to, not to try to force ourselves into something or out of something. If we're being guided out of a job, for example, or out of a relationship or into a relationship, not to force ourselves to do the thing that we think we're being guided to do if we're terrified, but to just be open to listening, to listening to the Spirit, to really feeling the feelings that we're having, to feeling the fear, and just saying, okay, Spirit, I'm open to this, but I'm really afraid, and I need a little bit of help to be shown that this is safe. And the Spirit, that's like a little invitation, that's what the Spirit needs to start to give us the guidance in very maybe smaller baby steps. Maybe okay, well, why don't you just do this first? Just stand up and walk across the room first. Little things like that can start to open the mind and minimize the fear, so that we can actually feel safe enough to start to take baby steps towards opening to guidance all the time. And I see my friend Will just entered the room. Hey, Will.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, good to see you.
Fantastic. Thank you for inviting me. I only just saw the invite just now.
Oh, okay. That's so funny. I hear that a lot where in Google invites, there seems to be a huge delay factor with them sometimes.
I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I'll be quiet and listen.
I'm sorry?
I'll be quiet and listen.
Okay, yeah, and feel free to chime in if you have anything to share or a question or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I actually thought I'd start off this hangout with a song. I wrote this song a few years ago after I had started to take some pretty deep, or what the world would call pretty radical leaps of faith. I was guided to leave behind a very lucrative hypnotherapy career where I felt secure. I had a house in Austin, Texas, and I was making pretty good money. Depending on how much I worked, I could make six figures if I really wanted to at that time. But I started to just become really feeling unfulfilled with it, and I didn't realize I was actually being guided out of that career and into a whole new life of being kind of what I am now, which is like a traveling minstrel. That was the term that David Hoffmeister heard for me. He said, "I think you're meant to be a minstrel," and So after that transition occurred, I started receiving songs from the Spirit, and this is one of them that came through shortly thereafter, called "Rhythm of the Soul," and I like this song for this topic. A lot of the songs that came through were about what I would call practical spirituality, which I feel that following guidance is synonymous with. They're just really about getting in touch with the real deep, authentic feelings in our heart, and just being open, being willing to be transparent, being willing to admit to ourselves when we're afraid, and also being willing to really open up to trust, to put all our trust in the Spirit and begin to remove our trust from everything we've learned from the world, because everything we've learned from the world was taught by the ego to try to keep us trapped. So here's this song. I'm just gonna change microphones here. Sometimes I get so afraid of this made-up world I made. But when I trust inside, there's no need to hide my heart. 'Cause I have suffered far too long, thinking I could know for myself what's right and what's wrong. But now I'm learning to laugh at all those games I played in the past. And now I'm living by the rhythm of the soul, and it's calling me home. I'm giving up believing that I really know anything at all. I'm forgiving myself for being afraid and running away. I'm living by the rhythm of the soul, and I trust I will be shown which way to go, which way to flow, which way to know who I am and who I've always been. Well, there's a secret in your heart that can tell you who you are. And if I forgive you, and I may know that secret too. And now I'm living by the rhythm of the soul, and it's calling me home. Giving up believing that I really know anything at all. I'm forgiving myself for being afraid and running away. I'm living by the rhythm of the soul, and I trust I will be shown which way to go, which way to flow, which way to know who I am and who I've always been. Well, it can be so easy when I stop making it so hard, when I just trust the river and it gently carries me along to the sound of my favorite song. So if you sometimes feel afraid of this made-up world we made, you can trust inside, and you'll know everything's okay. And now we're living by the rhythm of the soul, and it's calling us home. We're giving up believing that we've ever known anything at all. We're forgiving ourselves for being afraid and running away. We're living by the rhythm of the soul, and we're on our way back home. Thank you.
That's very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so grateful for all those songs. I was asked recently if I'd have written any new songs in the past, recently, and I really haven't. I've collaborated with people in the past couple of years, writing songs together that were kind of like their songs that I helped them create. So I love playing those as well. But yeah, I haven't written any new ones, and I just feel like more and more. There has been thoughts in the past of like what's going on there? Have I somehow, am I blocking the inspiration? But I just really am grateful for the songs I have received, and they just feel like they're just the perfect amount of songs. I have like 11 songs that were given to me, so Always feels good to share them.
It's all complete.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the term I heard the other day from Jackie Simpson, and Kirsten, was it's all maximized and maximal.
Mm. I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that. They said that it was maximal, or that something was maximal?
Yes, yeah, that it was now full. Yeah,
Yeah,
the creative is complete.
yeah, yeah. That's just trusting whatever's given, and if something's not given, if it's not coming through or happening in our life, whatever it is, it's not really needed.
Yeah, yes, actually, that's something I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Um, so last October, I quit my job and I went to a retreat in Sweden with Jackie and Kirsten. So I traveled 10,000 kilometers just just to go to a retreat, but it was awesome, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Um, but and so I went there, had a lovely time, came back, and very quickly ended up falling over physically. Um, by that I mean um, I've had a sort of ongoing health problem with my back, and suddenly I couldn't walk. It was like my body was, how I felt was unwinding physically, and perhaps reflecting the um, unwinding of the mind process, because I'd recently started reading David's Unwinding of the Mind book. And the the problem has persisted right till today. There has been a degree of um, physical improvement, but it's still quite limiting. And just just before I came on, I was feeling, well, okay, just it is what it is, and just go with it. And you made that comment about if it's not given, then it's not needed, and that's exactly how I felt. That everything's fine exactly where it is, because I've been in this state for about 3 months, and I'm starting to go, ooh, but why am I not improving? Why is it not getting better? And da da da. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate, because I actually I'm still feeling some symptoms. I started having cold symptoms a couple weeks ago, and I also had them about a month ago, and they just came back again like a week ago or so, and they've just been persisting. And yeah, there was obvious so much ego stuff coming up, like what does this mean, and am I avoiding something, or is there something in my mind I'm not willing to look at, and is that why these coming from that? And yeah, I finally just began to hear the message that I just needed to be gentle with myself, and just
Absolutely.
be open.
Yeah. In fact, I went for some physical treatment. It's called Bowen, Bowen treatment, which is basically a manipulation of the muscles to try and relieve them. And I was explaining to the lady that was doing it. I said, I walk past the door and I bang into it, and I'm so tight, I get a shock. And she says, yeah, your body's very unforgiving. And when she said that, I thought, wow, there's the word. So yeah, the message I got was, just really be gentle, just let it go. Don't be
Yeah.
so tight on everything.
Yeah.
Don't
That's
be so
it.
wound up.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's coming from like whatever the symptoms are, they're coming because we're actually trying to do too much, and we're trying
Right.
to be too busy, and the spirit's actually, not that the
Still.
spirit makes us sick in order to like stop, but
Yeah.
but if we're doing things from ego motivations, we will get sick, and then that can actually serve to kind of force us to pause and step back, and maybe we're meant to just stay in bed all day and contemplate, instead of be like pray, and instead of all the busyness. That was kind of, I feel like that's what it was for me, and it was just so helpful to
I
do
think
that.
that's exactly right, Eric. That's how I do feel. Is that it's yeah, the call to love is really to be still, just chill out, let it go, just slow down, and just be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting you talked about the cold because when I was listening to you and Dawn yesterday, I noticed the cough.
Mm-hmm.
It just jumped at me. So yeah, the, interesting that you mention it today.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I enjoyed that yesterday. That was really good.
Yeah, that was. I enjoyed it too.
Some very good thoughts came up there. I was very interested in the talk about creating and your creations.
Yeah.
The distinction actually between creating and making. I thought was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important one, I think.
Um, like I do feel the creative urge. Like as I've sat and contemplated my navel, uh, yes, that creative thing has come up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I used.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just that, yeah, it's good. It's good to get in touch with that, and I feel like I mean, that's our source. That's the creative urge is coming from who we are, and then we just want to be attentive to like what is it being used for, and but not to, but even that, it can be tricky. This is good because it gets into guidance where sometimes feeling like this strong urge to create in a certain way, like to paint, or to write up maybe even make a new business plan or something, and the ego can jump in and kind of minimize that and say that's the ego can say, well, that's egoic,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
kind of stop it. So it just this is where discernment is so important. Like, how does it feel when we actually allow the creative urge to come through in whatever way it looks for us? Does it feel joyful? Does it feel exciting? Really, how does it feel? Not in terms of like what works. If there's a sense of like stress, like we're making it happen, but there's kind of an ego excitement about what it might help us get in the future, which can be subtle because we really need to see how does it actually feel. Then that's a good way of knowing like whether it's something to just question or whether it's something just to fully trust and go for.
Absolutely. In fact, that was funny enough that you were the theme of this meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Discerning the ego voice and the spirit voice. Um, and I do feel great joy, like that sense of joy in allowing that creative urge to come forth. So that's how I know that that's all good for me. Um, I don't need the outcome from it. It's the being with it. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the past, I would have been looking for an outcome and thinking, oh, it has to do this and has to do that, and you know, has to has to create some good, some public good or something like that. But no, I don't feel that. I just feel
Mm.
great joy in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I, I think it's the joy of the expression of it.
Yeah.
Must be like writing music.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And even
um,
speaking, whatever it is.
yes. Um, I yes. What I've come away from was I spent 2 years in a large project, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I had been out of the workforce and doing reading and a lot of prayer and meditation. But this job opportunity came up, and I gave it a lot of prayerful thought about whether to go into it or not. And interestingly enough, I was talking to Armel at the time, and she said, "Look, yeah, there's quite probably something in there for you. Go for it. Just see what's there." And the good things that came out of it for me were I got some really wonderful distinctions because the project was called a project, and we did a lot of projecting. But funny enough, the project was called extended inventory. So I got this wonderful distinction between projecting and extending. And so when I gave up, when I came out of the project last October, I felt quite full and complete with it. That whatever I was supposed to get out of it, I felt like I had got out of it.
Mm.
And inevitably, there were lots of forgiveness opportunities, and yeah, I felt very happy when I exited.
Mm.
Um, only to come out and then fall flat on my face physically. But even then,
Yeah.
yeah, even then, I thought that was great because I really did feel it was unwinding.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we go from, like, the Spirit actually guides us from one extreme to another, like from being busy, busy, busy to the
Yeah,
opposite of now rest, 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 and
yeah,
because it will flush up like all the tendencies, all the patterns where we got comfortable with lots of doing, or vice versa. If it's the
yes,
other way around, it's just constantly forcing the mind to let go of any attachments to anything.
right, yeah, and it was very much doing, Eric. It was the whole thing about projects is doing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so now it's being.
Yeah. Resting in God.
Yes, yeah. I was doing some. Initially, I was doing some transcription work, and that was very joyful. Like going over David's talks and transcribing them,
Mm.
and it allowed me to listen very carefully to because you had to keep going over and over what was being said to try and catch what actually was being said. So, by the 10th time you'd heard the same sentence, you started to hear some stuff in there. It's very good, but I haven't been doing that lately.
Mm-hmm.
I even stopped doing that, just
Mm.
let everything go.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's great. Just being so open and just seeing what's given, like what's obvious for me to do now, and at each moment, like what's the most obvious thing for me to do right now. And anytime that we're not feeling happy, then we can just pause and ask ourselves that question: is there anything I'm not doing that I feel like I should be doing? Like sometimes, I've noticed myself, like sometimes I'll get a prompt, like I'll just have a thought to do something, and it will be a thought that's given by the Spirit, but I'll kind of just ignore it. But it won't go away. It'll sort of just stay in the background, and I'll start to grow. I'll notice that I grow more and more uncomfortable as time goes by, until I actually go, okay, I think I need to actually do that and clear that from my mind, like clear that, like complete that prompt, and then, I think the Spirit, it's like the Spirit gives us a prompt, and then we won't really be ready for the next prompt until we've completed the first one that He gave us. So sometimes we'll notice that those feelings building up, a sense of like, yeah, I really need to do that, and it's going to be helpful. It'll pull us out of a sense of lethargy or a sense a sense of discontent, or that something's missing. So that's another way that it has played out for me as well.
Yeah, I relate to that one, Eric, because last October, I really did feel the call, which is what prompted me to go to Sweden. And that trip, that journey, had a whole lot of other things in it, because I ended up going to Germany as well, to Düsseldorf. And I had a whole lot of past life experiences when I went there. It was, pretty crazy. Like real sort of, a lot of stuff came up. And so, I realized that this really was part of the unwinding. It was very strong in my head about unwinding and letting stuff go and allowing the stuff to come up and dissipate it. But equally, I felt that it was still part of a process of calling, and I still feel that. So it is that thought, in, like you said, in the back of my head, where I just feel this calling. But I also feel that this is the opportunity to take some time to allow my belief in my body to physically heal. Just take that time. But yeah, the prompt is still there, hasn't gone away.
Yeah. I lived in community for about on and off for several years, but before I came back here to California, where I am now, I was living at the Living Miracles Metaphysical Center there in Camas, in Utah, and it was like I knew that. So I go there. The context for going there is to volunteer and to basically just be in support of David's ministry, which I just felt a strong call that would really be helpful in serving my awakening, and still is. Although now it's a slightly different form, I'm still volunteering, but in different ways. And in that context, it's amazing how how rapidly the lessons come, where it kind of forces them. I'll just give you an example. Like somebody would ask me to do something. Like they'd say, "I want you to call this person who's shown some interest in volunteering for us by doing some video editing, for example, and see where they're at. Like see if they can come in on Monday and do some editing." And I might feel some fear around that, because maybe some thoughts of, well, I don't want to bother that person, or the last time I talked to them, they didn't really seem like they wanted to do any video editing anymore, and so I don't, I don't like when I tune into them, I don't think they're open to it, and so it would put me in touch with this conflict. It'd be like there's somebody seemingly outside of me who's asking me to do one thing, and my Erik, the personality, Erik has a different perspective, wants to do something else. And what I realized after many experiences of like this, in community where it comes up a lot, where you're asked to do something but you don't want to do it. There's a sense of I don't want to do that comes up. I started to realize there has to be a way through this where I don't feel like I'm compromising, like I'm just going against how I feel and just people pleasing the other person. But I also don't feel like I'm just putting up a no and just saying, no, I'm not going to do that, which would always feel bad as well. And so I had to really take it inward and see that what was happening on the screen, we could say, that the screen of this world, was that I was being put face to face with a conflict that really isn't about what this person wants versus what I want, but it's really about a conflict between the two choices the ego's offering, like do this or do that, and that the solution would always be to surrender inward and be really just open up, like really open my mind and say, I'm willing to do anything. And really what I want to do in that situation is I want to learn to see through what's appearing on the screen and see the Christ, like be willing to see the innocence, to not project anything onto my brother or sister and say that they're the one that's wrong, or to project on myself and say, maybe I'm just the one that's wrong here, but to see that no one's really wrong. It's just that it's an opportunity where it's fleshing up preferences. It's fleshing up attachments to how things should go, or what things are good and what things are bad. And the only way out of the conflict is a real deep willingness to just make no conclusions, and to be open to just following whatever seems like it's most in the flow. And living in community, typically, because the context is there that I'm there to volunteer and support, it's typically to just go ahead and say yes to whatever's being asked, and to be honest with them as well. If I do have a strong reaction to be willing to share that, but that would usually just bring me out of the conflict very quickly. By just doing it, I would have an experience of saying, oh, well, actually that person who you asked me to call, they were actually really happy that I called, and I thought they wouldn't be. So I had that experience a lot. But yeah, there's just this deep shift where we have to be so open and so willing to make no conclusions about anything, and ask the Spirit, just really make it obvious, and I'm willing to follow any guidance that you give me, because I know that's ultimately going to be what heals me and what makes me feel at peace.
Well, thank you, Erik. Yeah, that's bang on for me. Those words were very much, I think, what I needed to hear. So that's basically what I have been doing, and it's just confirmed it for me. It's just to be open, to stay in peace. So what happened was a suggestion was made to me to go to New South Wales, to Yarrie, to Emily and Greg, who are over there, and they've got a property which they've been using to have retreats. And I was very happy with the idea of going there, but at the same time, I know now, because I can see it, that the body wasn't in that shape to do that, to do the doing. So it was very much a doing thing, going over there, and at least that's how I was seeing it. But this is the time, I think, for me to be still, just be completely open and just allow it to be exactly the way it is, and allow it to bring itself to. If I do end up going over to there, well then I'll know when the time is right, because everything will open for that. Whereas it hasn't at this point, so
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just that openness is the key.
And I do feel happy about that. I do feel happy about just being in the moment and staying open and allowing it to show itself when it needs to show itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my prayer is always make it obvious, and yeah, just being so open and just being really in touch with how do I feel. I've had many times when I've been given suggestions as well, like that, like this might be helpful for you, and if I can just try to stay open to them, to all the suggestions, and just be open and nothing else. That's really my only job, is to keep an open mind. Then whatever is needed, whatever is needed that will be truly helpful will just start to kind of trickle in, and it will become obvious.
Yeah, you made a point yesterday which I thought was very good, or helpful, and what I heard was more or less, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Get yourself out of the way.
Yeah.
And just allow the Spirit to do its job, and your only job is to let it do its job.
Yeah.
I think that's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
In fact, I feel like a lot of that is what's coming to me, is about get out of the way. Well, number one, get out of the way. Number two, stay out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just let the miracles happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another aspect of the whole, just of practicing the course is just being so vigilant to anytime our mind is kind of locking on to anything in form, because one of the things I was going to talk about on the call was a lot of times people will use an idea that Ken Wapnick would often teach, which I think has a helpful aspect to it, but it also gets used by the ego, which is, well, I don't need to do that. I don't need to follow that guidance, because I can just be normal. He would say, just be normal sometimes to people, which I think sometimes can be used in a really helpful way too. Oftentimes when Ken would speak about it, he would share examples of people who would do things like they would not lock their car even if they were parking in downtown New York, because they were thinking, well, and I'm not supposed to defend myself, so I'm not going to lock my car. And excuse me, I'm going to cough for a second. And he would say, just be normal, meaning don't try to be spiritual, don't try to, do things that are spiritual. But the ego can also use that for its own purposes when we're actually hearing a prompt, whether it's in our own mind or from a brother who loves us, saying, I feel this would be helpful for you in opening your mind. It's really the Spirit telling us, this would really be a means of facing things that you need to face in order to really go deeper and be happy. That's really what I want for you. And the ego can come up and say, no, that sounds a little weird, and I I just need to be normal. And it can be used as a defense, and quite frequently is. And it's just helpful to notice whenever there's any kind of conclusion made about what is helpful for me. Like, like whenever we think we know what's in our best interest about anything, then it's like we really never know. And everything can change in an instant too. Our mind is so powerful that I remember I had, my experience with back when I had the career was that I had about $30,000 of debt, and if someone had came to me and said, "I think you should quit your job," I don't think I would have been like, "You're crazy. I've got $30,000 in debt. I have to work in order to pay this debt off." And it wasn't until I attended, first I started getting more and more kind of just feeling like I was just running on a hamster wheel, and it was actually getting impossible for me to even continue working. I was so uninspired by it that I was reading the Course, and I was reading lines that were saying things like, you need do nothing but follow your one purpose, and everything else will be provided, and different ideas like that were getting stronger and stronger. And I started realizing, is it really possible to just only do what I'm inspired to do, and that everything will be, because I'm not inspired to do this job anymore, so how's that going to work? And when I finally attended a devotional retreat with some of the Messengers of Peace, and started getting more and more reflections of people saying, "Yeah, I think it's time for you to quit and just to trust that things will work out, the debt will get paid off." It was a huge leap of faith, and it was quite. I just couldn't have imagined the way that things unfolded after that, where by quitting the job, I suddenly was filled with inspiration for this new phase, and I still continued to work for about 2 months just to train my replacement. And during those 2 months, I ended up making like $30,000 enough to pay off all the debt. And it was just, I couldn't have ever predicted that, because I had been trying to pay off the debt for like 5 or 7 years, even longer than that actually, but in that particular career for about 5 to 7 years, and it just had been I'd been chipping away at it, but it was like somehow, even though I was making a lot of money and I didn't have a family to support, I didn't really have a whole lot of expenses, somehow I managed to spend the money every month and not pay off the debt. It was like, it just seems so funny how we sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
But when I finally took the leap of faith and did the thing that seems so counterintuitive, everything worked out. So it's just a testament to how we have no clue, and if this really is a dream, and everything we're perceiving, everything that we're thinking and perceiving is coming from a very deeply rooted belief system in lack, then we have no idea what's truly helpful. We never ever ever know what we're truly meant to be doing moment by moment. We could be guided to we might receive the guidance to just sit and do nothing right now, and to completely forget everything, and then 5 minutes later suddenly we get the guidance to go see a movie, or to suddenly start a whole new project or whatever, and then we might start that project or whatever, and then suddenly get the guidance, okay, let it go now, pause again, and completely let it go. So it can seem like the guidance is designed, it can almost seem like it's craziness sometimes, where we seem to get guidance that can be so against everything that the world has taught us. But yeah, that's why it takes a lot of practice in taking the little baby steps we receive, and always keeping our mind open to receiving communication from all sources.
Yeah,
the Spirit's always communicating.
I have no doubt that I was guided to speak to the Erik character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what you just said there is pretty close description of what I've just been through. um, like pretty crazy to leave your job and go off overseas and come back and not go back to work, but just do nothing. That's pretty crazy. Uh, but
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
felt that was what to do. You
Yeah.
and like talking with you earlier about that being okay. Um, I do have the thoughts coming into my mind that relate to that earlier prompt, and so I don't feel that that's gone away or going to go away. I just feel that it's the time, and it will become um, whatever needs to happen will happen. I'm very clear on that in my mind.
Yeah.
So it allows me just to relax around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I often would, whenever, sometimes, one thing that I would often do, which we may be guided to do, is if I've received a prompt that seemed to come through another person, like an invitation or whatnot, and it feels like it's not the right timing, um, is just to be open to exploring that, just like just to be see if we can just see, like, is it possible that maybe it is, like, that maybe I don't really know about the timing thing, and maybe miracles would happen, um, and we can only know that for ourselves, really, just to see if we're open to a total miracle that where everything could shift. But yeah, in the past I've had a lot of experiences where initially something that somebody was suggesting seemed totally impossible, and then through my willingness to just say, okay, it feels impossible, but I'm open, like, convince me here. The Spirit really wants to convince us, and our only job is just to let Him, like I was saying the other day.
Mm.
And yeah, sometimes we'll be given ideas that we just had no, just no clue that we're even possible. And
Well, Eric, I'm waiting for the miracle.
yeah, yeah.
I'm waiting for that miracle.
Yeah,
Miracle me.
yeah, that's good. That's it. Just being in that miracle me. Send me, make it obvious. I'm open to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate you just sharing your experience, and it's so perfect. Like, yeah, you just came on this call, and then the topic of guidance and discernment was already there, and then you're just sharing all these things exactly in line with that, and it's really helpful for everyone, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It was amazing. Like I said, I only just got the invitation just before we came on, so it's kind of like it was just instant there, and I thought, oh, there's Eric. I'll click the link.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that was a miracle in itself.
yeah, yeah. That's neat. I had an experience right before this call where because I'm volunteering for David's internet ministry by helping to upgrade several of his websites, and there's like a whole team of us who are working together, and whenever we finish a website, where we have a spreadsheet that we're supposed to update to let the rest of the team know that we've finished that site, and now they can go in and do the final polishing or the optimization process and whatnot. And And so I had finished a website the other day, but had forgotten to update the spreadsheet. And I was sitting here today, just a little while before this call, and I suddenly heard the prompt, like, go in and update the spreadsheet. So I get on the computer and I start to go in and update the spreadsheet. And just as I'm about to do that, I get an email from one of the team members just saying, hey, can you please update the spreadsheet? And it was just so funny, like how synchronistic that was. I was like, wow, I just had the thought. Almost like I heard their thought, you know? It was almost like they had the thought and then it got transferred to me. So I love, the experiences like that are beginning to really collapse the idea that we have separate minds. I'm really beginning to see it's all one.
Yeah, I absolutely felt that. Join mine. And that actually has been my prayer about, to use David's term, the one, getting into the unified field, you know. I was very inspired by that conversation, and getting the distinction of, the quantum idea of everything being unified in the mind, and when we particularize everything, we kind of drop out of it in a way.
Yeah.
So it's sort of getting back into the abstract and a single drawing mind. That used to scare me. You know, that sort of being a blank.
Yeah.
But not now.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend last night. I had a gathering here in San Rafael. I had promoted a gathering for Valentine's Day. I felt inspired to put on a gathering called The Special Relationship, and have it be like an alternative event that people could come to if they, didn't want to just do the regular kind of taking their lover out on a date thing, which is fine. But I didn't expect it to be well attended, and it wasn't. It was one person came, and it was just beautiful. We had this great conversation, and at one point she shared how she had been volunteering actually in the community as well recently, and had so much fear coming up, so much fear, like, from the time she got there and at different points where she'd noticed the mind trying to come up with a good excuse to leave and not really being able to find a good excuse, but thinking I need to find, and realizing what was going on, but just watching it. And at one point she heard the Spirit whispering something to her that really spoke to the core of what the fear is for all of us, and what she heard was, it's okay that you don't exist.
Yeah.
meaning that not that the spirit self obviously is real, but the self that we're so identified with most of the time doesn't, it's really not. It's just a funny trick. And it's okay. It's okay that this whole trick is just a trick. And there's such a joy when we can look at that and laugh and just laugh at ourself, laugh at the self that the ego made, the substitute for our Christ self. I think there's a point in the Course where Jesus just says that the self you think you are is just it's like a caricature. It's like it's ridiculous, he says. It's just a ridiculous substitute for what you really are. Imagine trying to be content with a personality self that's just totally limited and broken down, and human beings are just hysterical on how just how ridiculous they are, and how they're just they're like these bumbling fools that are just walking around thinking that they actually have control over their life, and thinking that they can actually, make a difference in the world, and thinking that they can be even happy as human beings. And, the Spirit's just trying to, as gently as possible, because these ideas are so radical, but trying to just help us see that this is not it. This is not our home. This is not our true self. This is not going to ever, it's never, ever, ever going to fulfill us to keep up this game of playing pretend, of playing human.
Yeah, just so invested in my personality, and I feel that that's where I am now with the unwinding, is divesting myself of that identity, just letting that go, and being happy with that, being happy with that notion, because the prize, if you like, really is that oneness, the joining, and I think I've known that for a long time, because it's always been something deep inside me, the desire to join. It's been there. I went about 10 years ago. I went to this course. Have you heard of Landmark?
Oh yeah, I was really involved in Landmark for a while.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did the same thing. And as you know, it's really about getting underneath,
Yeah.
getting underneath the hood. But during that, whenever I was asked, what is it, what's your possibility, where are you trying to get to, my conversation was always about joining and finding my true self. And I went through one of those exercises. I don't know if you remember the being with exercise.
Yeah.
The idea was to see what was the predominant thought in your mind at the time. And the one that came out for me was the possibility of miracles, amazingly. So the idea of miracles, the possibility of miracles, was always very strong in me, in my mind anyway, at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember having that experience too, where I remember I was studying the course, and I was also doing Landmark, and I was it was starting to feel like I could only go so far.
Yes. Yeah.
That they were offering a beautiful gift, but I started to get to a point where I didn't really want anything, in form anymore. I just wanted peace of mind. I wanted healing, and then when I was starting to really get the course, I was seeing that it was about just going so far beyond this world that I'd have to make a radically devote myself to something even deeper than anything I'd ever known before.
I was the same, Eric. I started to do the introductory leadership thing. And funny enough, I was reading the course at the time, and all of my family members were wanting me to come in to one of the Landmark courses, and I think I went through 7 introductions. Eventually I decided to go along, and then I went into it, did the introductory course, and did the various other courses, the advanced course and whatnot. And at the same time I was reading the course materials, the Course in Miracles materials. And I could see the similarities, like getting beyond the illusion. But it got to a point where I didn't see myself going forward with Landmark, whereas the course materials really appealed to me, and I felt that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was more that at that time for me, the course materials had what I saw as more of a spiritual thing, whereas Landmark didn't talk well, less so about spiritual things. Well, in my perception at the time, anyway.
Yeah. 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 That's good. We just get led from stepping stone to stepping stone. Exactly what we need wherever we
That was
are.
exactly that was exactly right, Harry. Exactly right. That's how I felt, that I was being stepped along,
Yeah.
guided.
Yeah. And I think there's always, going to be with each stepping stone, each time we're guided to make any kind of shift that feels significant in our life, whether it's letting go of one kind of spiritual path, so to speak, and accepting another one, or whether it's going from one relationship to another, or one job to another, or one living situation to another, or whatever the shift seems to be. If it's guided, we can really expect that there's going to be some fears that come up, some discomfort. That there's going to be thoughts, there's going to be attack thoughts that may seem to come from others, who will seem to be reflecting our doubt. Like, who do you think you are to be doing this? Or, basically like trying to kind of hold us down. The ego's always going to say, no, just, maybe it'll even say, just be normal. Why are you being so, why are you trying to be so spiritual or out there? And yeah, that's another way to kind of know that we're on the right track, when past relationships are getting angry at us.
Very good. The negative space.
Yeah, yeah. And usually we'll have both sides. We'll have others who, not always, but if we're, sometimes we'll be fortunate enough to have, mighty companions, like those who are also on the same path that we're on, so to speak, or they're reflections of love who really can feel our heart. They're very intuitive, and they'll be encouraging us to make these leaps, of faith, or these stepping stone changes. And I've had the experience so many times of feeling like there's a cord, between me and maybe another person, like an old relationship, or we could call a special relationship, like someone that I've had seemingly a special relationship with, whether it doesn't have to be a lover, it could be an old friend or a family member or someone who seems to be getting hurt by my choice to really follow my calling. I remember a couple of years ago, my dad actually said, because I was just, I was just making these radical steps, and I was being less and less. It was very rare that I was guided to attend old family reunion events anymore, and all the old parties, and my biological family and extended family, they get together and they party a lot. And and I used to think, wow, I have such an amazing family that it's just so much fun, and we're all, and I still feel, in the sense of this world, I have a very loving family, but I just started to lose interest in kind of having just kind of fun interactions where the purpose didn't really go as deep as I was calling for anymore. I wanted to be talking about awakening. I wanted to be talking about deep ideas with people, and it seemed like everyone in my family, wasn't into that anymore. I was going beyond and there was a gap. It seemed like a widening gap between where I was at and where they were at. And yeah, it just kept taking so much of a faith to continue following the calling, even when I felt like I was being pulled. Like there'd be these requests, like, please come to the camping trip this year. Like, how come you're not coming? Why aren't you in? Why aren't you being the old Erik like you used to be, and come and entertain us with your guitar? And and I just had to be so like open, like not to say, it took a lot actually to not get defensive with those kinds of requests and say, well, I'm not into that anymore. But just to stay open and say, I'm willing, but I really want to just pray into it. I really want to stay open and spontaneous, and I do feel that my mind is going through a shift. I'm going through some kind of a healing, and I just want to be as authentic as I can. So I can't tell you honestly whether I'm going to be there or not. It's going to have to I'm going to have to really feel it. And sometimes people can hear that, and sometimes they really can't. That's kind of difficult for them to hear, but as long as I'm at peace and I'm willing to not reject anybody nor people please and give them an answer that's not true, but to just stay in that I don't know space, that space of really being open-minded about it. Like I've been saying, just being open-minded, and that's where it feels like that's the way the Spirit always will guide us to be, unless we're really clear already. We might already know for sure that no, I'm not guided to be there. I know I'm not. That's just not my calling. I'm going to be doing this instead, and that's my calling. But if we don't know, and if it feels too difficult to say no, then I was always often guided to just give an answer like that. I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with my particular circumstance here, I've just put it straight back into the Spirit's hands and go, oh, no, show me, because I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking here. I just realized that a couple of questions had come in. There's like a Q&A app on these Google Hangouts now. So I'm just reading them right now. Yesterday I was doing lesson 45, God is the mind in which I think, and it said, where then are your real thoughts? Today we will attempt to reach them. We will have to look for them in your mind, because that is where they are. They must still be there, because they cannot have left their source. All day I was trying to find them beyond my mundane thoughts, but with no success. How do I recognize my real thoughts? Yeah, it's a good question. It's a really good question, because yeah, the mundane thoughts are quite quite persistent. We just get completely preoccupied every day, it seems, with thoughts of time and space, thoughts of what I need to do to survive today, and just starting to feel like we're caught in a hamster wheel. It takes a lot of mind training, I think, to just start to really relax our mind and go into the stillness. I'm just going to pause you if you don't mind, Will, just to keep the background sounds down, and to just listen to to that. It says in the Bible, the small still voice, and he also uses that in the chorus, that the Spirit is as loud as your willingness to listen. And so we could say that our real thoughts are the Spirit's thoughts, because the Spirit is really who we are, and it's always there. the thoughts of the Spirit are always there, but it requires that we're willing to pause. And I think that's, the whole workbook of A Course in Miracles is really designed to help us get in touch with our real thoughts. So it's great that you're doing the workbook and that you're asking that question: how do I get in touch with my real thoughts? And it just takes some practice. And I know that there have been experiences that you've had where you felt a peace, where you felt a stillness, you felt a still small voice giving you some kind of suggestion. It may have just been something very basic, like "I love you," or "it's okay," like "relax." Something that just calms the mind. Whenever the mind feels soothed by a thought, by like a fresh thought, that's a real thought. That would be an example of the Spirit speaking to us and giving us guidance, or just giving us a very soothing idea that we can rest into. So I think that it's just a matter of being willing to keep desiring that, and we can't really get rid of the desire. We're just gonna actually grow in our desire for those real thoughts, because we can't tolerate living in the ego thoughts forever. The ego's game does have an end. It cannot go on indefinitely. Our tolerance for pain is not without limit, and it just continuously decreases to where we're less tolerant of the ego's shenanigans, and we feel like I don't want to listen to this anymore. I'm tired of listening to you. I want to hear the love. I want to hear what's valuable and what's going to really give me the peace of God that I deserve. So, yeah, I would just say to keep practicing the workbook, and just trusting that the real thoughts you'll hear them more and more. You'll feel them. You'll just have those peaceful thoughts coming into the mind more and more and more, and guiding you to relax and follow that guidance of the Spirit.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. Someone asked, what time is or was this class yet? Started at 2 o'clock California time, but I don't know. I think on Google. Does it show? I guess it shows you when you click on the page, it tells you what time it's at in your part of the world. Is that
Yeah,
true?
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. So it works in my time, so I know exactly what time it's going to be on. I don't have to go to time and date and try and convert it or anything.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you so much, Will. This has been great. I really enjoyed it.
It's just been so awesome. Just everything you said is kind of like what was needed for me. It's all given, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, how often do you have these, Eric?
Well, I've been doing them frequently. I just started doing them, starting up the Google Hangout thing a few days ago, and I've done 3 of them. This is my 3rd one now in just a few days. So I know at my current pace, I'm doing 1 every day or every other day. So I feel like that'll continue. I think it's just going to be spontaneous. I'm practicing just giving it all over to Spirit and saying I really want to be used, and so just you tell me when I'm meant to schedule another one. And this morning I felt a strong prompt to get up early and schedule this one for 2 o'clock my time, and so I may be guided right after this to... What's that?
Was that 2 o'clock your time, a.m.?
No. I was guided to get up, not that early, but like 6 a.m. my time, and then schedule this hangout for
okay.
2 p.m. And I may get a prompt after this call to set up another one for maybe tomorrow, but
Cool.
it remains to be seen. So we'll be sending out the invitations and
Awesome. I'll
yeah.
watch out for them.
Yeah,
I don't know if you recall my son Josh.
I do. Yeah.
He said to say hello.
Oh, say hi to Josh for me.
Yeah.
I added him,
Yeah.
I think, too, to my invite list. So
He saw it. He saw
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
he just messaged me to say hello to you.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Josh fondly. So say hi to him for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Have a wonderful, blessed day.
You too. Well, thank you, and thanks everybody who's watching. Lots of love to you.
Bye.
Bye bye.